Alrighty, this is so exciting. Welcome to June 2022 .NET MAUI Community Stand-Up. It's out. It's launched. .NET MAUI is real. It is a GA product in the wild. We shipped it on May 23rd. I said this in the last stream we did, and I still don't remember. That's okay. Dave, you're muted. That's okay. This is like the fourth time you've done this today. Dave and I are also coming off from the inaugural Learn.NET MAUI live stream we did this morning. So we have been causing chaos for like 3 hours now, and we have one more hour of chaos to create. We have some new animations in the StreamYard. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. So welcome. I am Maddy. I am a PM on the .NET MAUI team. I'm here with Dave, who's also a PM on the .NET MAUI team. You see our lovely faces every month. What we usually do in these community stand-ups is we share some of our community blogs that were posted. Like Dan Siegel DM'd me one on Twitter, and I saw him asking about it in the chat. I did read that, but we usually do blogs. We usually do PRs. We're going to do a little bit of a free-form discussion today because we're doing a MAUI launch party, and that means I grabbed all these people, and more may or may not pop in at any point, from the .NET MAUI teams, engineering teams, and they are here to answer questions and tell stories and cause chaos and get slimed, because we have that now. So where's my slime? Slimed. Nice. So we've been using that now whenever Dave or I can't answer a question. That's what it is for. Or we answer something wrong. Like I don't know what runtime MAUI runs on. And go back to the
We need this in meetings, I think,
Let's we do.
Somebody add that to Teams.
I'm gonna put in the chat the link of list of links thing. But all that this has this month is just some resources for getting started. Our new learning path, the What is MAUI docs, the workshop, the open source workshop that you can go and run, and James Montemagno's brand new playlist of MAUI introduction videos, which is amazing. Yeah. So that being said, why don't we do some introductions? So Dave and I already went, so we're good. Tim, you're muted, but would you like to start? Who you are, yes. Maybe where you're from, if you're interested, what you work on.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, hi, I'm Tim Miller. I work on the Visual Studio Client Experiences team, which is a mouthful, and primarily work on UI tooling. So hot reload, XAML live preview, XAML-ish things, and other various things. iOS remote sim, a bunch of stuff. But that's generally what I do, is UI tooling.
Yeah, Tim is the one who fixed the remote simulator not loading a couple months ago. He's the one who fixed that. So you can thank him for that. Javier.
Hello. So, well, my name is Javier. I'm engineer in the .NET MAUI team, working from Spain. And I think I have touched too many things in the last year to put some examples. But yeah, porting controls, creating controls, new APIs like shadows, etc. So, yeah.
Sweet. And Aloha Kit, please.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that for sure today.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I created some libraries to share with the community with the GA release. So created a new library that is a port from Xamarin Forms, that is template MAUI, that is 22 templated controls, and then another one with 4 new layouts, and the new one, it's Aloha Kit, that is use a library with already 12 controls. The nice thing about the library is that are drawn controls. So everything is drawn, everything is managed with Canvas and the native APIs, drawing the stuff in every platform.
And MAUI animation.
And I forgot MAUI animation also. It's a port from a Xamarin Forms library, allowing to create animations in XAML, introducing the storyboard concept that already you probably know from other Microsoft frameworks, etc. Yeah.
Cool. Hi, everybody in the chat. Hi, Sam. Sam just joined the chat. He was one of the people at Telerik who worked on the Progress, who worked on the Telerik UI kit for MAUI. Very exciting. Cool. All right, Rui, you next.
Hello, I'm Rui. I'm an engineer on the MAUI team, working from Portugal, so near Javier. I work in a little bit of everything, a lot of focus on the CI part of shipping MAUI and everything, and focusing now more on collection view and carousel view and fixing those bugs that are around. And that's it. I don't have as many libraries as Javier to say, so I'm going to stay here.
So I don't either. Don't worry. All right, the Peppers.
Yeah, I'm John Peppers. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I am on the Xamarin Android team, which now is maybe we call it the Android workload for .NET. I don't know. We don't have a name.
Identity crisis.
Yeah. I work on like MS build related things or performance related things, and so I somehow got roped into doing that for MAUI too. So I've been helping out with that along with my normal work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like dealing with all the new Android stuff. Nice stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a software engineer on the .NET MAUI team. And among all the fun things we touched working on MAUI this year, accessibility is one of the areas I work mostly on. So, yeah.
Sweet. Who's got echo? It might be Rachel. Sorry, Rachel. I'll mute you for a sec. Just because you have a little bit of echo. Sweet. Oh my goodness. We have so many people here saying hi. This is very exciting. We already have questions rolling in. So, first of all, John Galloway, by the way, he wears many hats, including these party hats, but he also does like the back end of all of the streams. All of the community stand-ups you see are partly because John Galloway is amazing. Oh, hey, Seth's here. I saw some questions. Tim's already responding about the Apple certificates thing that you might have seen. That fix is getting merged in right now, which is why some people are not here because they're doing that fix. And we'll see how many other people pop in to join us in between meetings and dinner and breakfast and all the different time zones because we are a global team. So let's jump right in. First and foremost, a nice question for Javier. Could you talk about the status of MAUI Graphics and when we should use it?
Well, I guess that question is maybe shared with David. I can talk a little bit about the status, etc. So first of all, what's MAUI Graphics? We introduced with MAUI an entry graphics library exposing with a cross-platform layer, different parts to draw from basic stuff, generate shadows, manipulate image, etc. Using the native APIs to draw in every platform. And we are already using that library in MAUI for many things, from shapes to draw shadows to other stuff. And taking advantage of that library, we create an experimental library, a prototype that is implementing the controls that already exist in Xamarin Fonts Visual. So if you remember well, it's controls like label, button, checkbox, etc. And we implemented it with drawn controls using that library, implementing Cupertino, Fluent, and Material Design. The current status is the library has been updated the past week to GA, and we have a nightly feed that generate some nugget package and allowing everyone to use that feed and get access to that controls, test, play with it, experiment, get feedback, everything, because that's what exactly we need. It's an experimental library, and we are now just getting information, feedback, and validating if that's a good approach, a good way to go in future versions. And with that, I share with David if you want to include anything else, but I guess that's more or less.
Yeah, so the MAUI graphics itself is that cross-platform using native graphics rendering. It also has a fallback to Skia Sharp if you actually prefer to have the same rendering engine on all platforms, and then you don't mind paying the price for the Skia Sharp, I guess, assemblies and NuGet package. Anytime that you want to do drawing that is cross-platform, use the MAUI Graphics APIs. As Javier mentioned, that's what we're using inside of MAUI for our shapes, for our shadows and things like that. So if you want to bring up a graphics view, I think is the name of the new control, right? And start drawing away on it, and you will be leveraging the MAUI graphics rendering across platforms. And then if you want to go and build cross-platform controls, like Javier mentioned also, then you could use the MAUI graphics as your backing source and build out those controls, knowing that they're going to run everywhere that MAUI graphics runs. Now, the one caveat that I will mention is that we support MAUI graphics in so much as it's a dependency of .NET MAUI. So while MAUI graphics as a library, you'll notice that it reaches into platforms that MAUI itself does not. Those bits are not covered under what we will support. We'll support it in so much as MAUI uses it.
Cool. Graphics. Bunch of questions were rolling in about that still. So yeah, we can come back to this. Let's see. We have some really niche questions. We have some really broad questions. So we're going to try and go back and forth. There are a bunch of questions about video playback, which, interesting spot. So this one is talking about Media Kit web view for media playback on iOS. There's one about a media player for MP4, all these different things. I don't know who wants to talk media. Dave, Tim, yeah,
I can try. Yeah. So I know the Xamarin Forms Community Toolkit, I believe, had a media control library for it that was bound to the underlying media players of all the platforms that it targeted, if I remember correctly. And I think they're trying to port that in the MAUI Community Toolkit to use the same thing. So I would look into that. There's also libvlc sharp for if you want to use that. I think they're also trying to port their stuff to .NET 6, and they are also trying to do a MAUI conversion as well. They also had a Forms version originally. That's also a great bet if the license you have supports it, because having VLC everywhere, you have one consistent media playback. You have to rely on the platform for it. So I'd recommend checking out libvlc sharp. But yeah, I think that a lot of that stuff's in the community toolkit. So that's probably where I would look first.
Getting the link for it too. Sweet. Anyone else want to chime in? Oh, we have a little Rui here to join the party as well. Hi, little Rui. Sweet. Oh my goodness. All right.
About media player, there is a specific control using renderers in the Xamarin community toolkit that was called media player. The media element, sorry. And there is an open proposal accepted in the MAUI community toolkit. So it's not still there, but we have a proposal accepted. So should be arrived in any time.
Cool. I will send the link to that specific issue as well. Oh my goodness. Community toolkit is so helpful, Jose. I 100% agree. I just started using the MVVM toolkit, which is not just for MAUI, it's for everything, but it does all of like the iNotify property change stuff for you. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Whew. How do people moderate things? This is not what I'm good at. There's too much. I want to choose everybody. Here's an easy one. If Peppers is doing Android, who's panicking about iOS? We have an iOS team panicking plenty. Don't you worry. We panic all the time about all these things. I have nightmares about Xcode. It's totally fine. Any migration tools from Xamarin to MAUI? So you can manually migrate if you want. We're working on .NET Upgrade Assistant support. So there's actually basic support in there now, but it isn't super tested. So if you want to try it out, go ahead. Let me know how it goes. I'm going to be doing like a blog and a whole thing about migration in a bit. So keep your eye out. But the real blocker to migrating is going to be if your NuGet packages that you use and rely on are available. I think Dave answered this one in the chat. Oh, here's a fun one. Is there going to be a designer for MAUI, or is this practice replaced by hot reloading? Anyone?
Nobody's jumping at this one.
Anyone?
I can. I have opinions, but please.
Yeah, everybody has opinions. So we have no plans to announce at this time about a designer. But we certainly hear loud and clear that a designer would be useful to many people. Who did we lose? We lost Rui. Now we're 6 up. Nice.
That's all right. We'll grab some more people eventually.
So yeah, I mean, keep the feedback coming. Don't stop telling us that it would be useful to you. I think some of the more interesting questions around the designer are, do you expect to see a representation of what it might look like on just a generic canvas, or do you expect to be able to see, okay, this is the Android look, and then go to a designer surface that is the iOS look, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, because there are slight differences, of course, in how those environments are going to natively render things. And that's probably the bigger technical challenge. I mean, we had the Xamarin previewer, is that what I think was called once upon a time, which was not a drag and drop designer, but it kind of demonstrated a similar complexity. So keep the feedback coming. Let us know that it's still important to you. And we certainly have it. It's one of the buckets we drop the research and the feedback into for sure. But no plans to announce at this time.
I do have something to add to that, though, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Just on the point of because it's definitely a topic that comes up a lot, and one of the things that the team I'm on is also investing in is for stuff like XAML Live Preview, where it's bringing the live application inside of the IDE as a de facto designer in a sense, right? But that requires you to build your application and run it. Having said that, the technology stack, theoretically, if you had a shell application that's running most of the code behind the scenes, we could show that when it's not debugging or something like that. So there's definitely a lot of avenues if we want to create a designer to have similar functionality, but make it work better than how we've traditionally done it. But yeah, to David's point is file feedback and make that clear that that's something you want, because then that will prioritize our work in trying to figure out how to do it.
Cool.
We're definitely interested. We have ideas.
Oh, we want to do lots of things.
Yeah,
we need to make sure
that's why you need feedback.
We want to make sure that we properly prioritize and make the investments where we can. We don't have, contrary to popular belief, unlimited resources and funds to do things. We have a budget, and so we need to invest it wisely.
Yep. Okay, a ton of questions about when MAUI. Oh, this is a hilarious picture. Stephen Austin Coldstone, by the way, it was great. When is it going to be available for download? What is its status? These are all the questions. It's GA. The SDK itself is GA. You can grab it. It's in Visual Studio 17.3 preview. So a bunch of questions asking when it's going to get out of preview, when 17.3 ships GA, which if you look at the release notes of Visual Studio, will give you an idea of how often we ship dot versions. I will tell you it's usually between 2 and 4 months. I would take a look in August, maybe. You didn't hear that from me, though. Cool. All right. Speaking of that, here's a question that just rolled in that I don't know. Maybe Peppers, you might be our nougat genius or workloads genius. Can you have multiple versions of .NET MAUI workloads installed?
Yeah, not easily. You can always have a .NET installation in a random folder with different workloads, right? But I wouldn't recommend trying to do this. Maybe it would be, maybe the question is what are you trying to do? If it's for CI, I would just have your CI install the workload you want. If you want to stay on a particular version, there's ways to do that.
Yeah, I think this question comes up a lot from folks that have that Xamarin background and experience, because we were shipping multiple different NuGets much more rapidly than what you're going to see now that we're part of the .NET MAUI .NET cadence of shipping. You're going to get one annual release That's the the big bump, right, with new features and stuff. And then on a monthly basis, you're going to get service releases. So you can roll back a service release and then roll forward, but you typically shouldn't really need, unless you're a contributor and you're like jumping branches maybe. But most people shouldn't need to maintain multiple versions in the same way that you felt the need when you were doing Xamarin.
Yeah.
One thing that will happen is when a Net 7 version is out, like you can pick Net 6 or Net 7 and you'll get the Net 6 MAUI or the Net 7 MAUI.
Those are your versions that you
maybe
can...
that's easier to think about going forward.
Cool. We also have a bunch of questions that are asking like what the relationship between Xamarin Forms and MAUI even is, right? So we've been saying Xamarin Forms, we've been saying MAUI. All of us have worked on both of these things. So what is going on here? Who wants to take a crack at this one?
Sure, I'll answer that one too. So yes, Xamarin Forms is the predecessor to .NET MAUI. We retained a bunch of it in the transition to MAUI. So the XAML syntax, markup extensions, binding syntax, the controls themselves in terms of the names, and for the most part, the APIs. Majority of the layouts were retained, but the underlying implementation of how the cross-platform relates to the unique native platforms changed moving from Xamarin Forms to MAUI. So where a renderer, which is what the platform control on Xamarin Forms was called, it would actually have a reference to the cross-platform pieces. And so there was a strong relationship there, which had all kinds of benefits from a productivity standpoint for us, but had negative impact on performance and extensibility and things like that, and code reuse, etc. So MAUI has changed to what we keep referring to as the handler mapper, or just handlers. And what we've done is decoupled those things and then use interfaces to connect everything up. So it's much more extensible. It's more performant. Everything is what you may have referred to in the past as a fast renderer in that way. So where possible, we do not wrap views in views. There are some special cases where we do. Borders and shadows, I think, are two. But you don't pay that price unless you actually use those things. And it may not be a price at all for you. It might just be great. Awesome. I mean, anytime you do shadows, you're doing something, you are going to have a heavier graphics requirement on the application. So that's the relationship. And then Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android have always been the underpinnings of what Xamarin Forms uses on those platforms. You can directly touch those APIs, use storyboards and nib files and XML, AXML, whatever Android's doing these days for layouts. And that's we just don't call it Xamarin anymore. Once you get to .NET 6, it's like John was saying, Android, .NET for Android, .NET for iOS. They're just the .NETs for those platforms.
Cool. Speaking of things Peppers have said, is there a performance comparison between Forms and MAUI?
Yeah, I have a repo. We could probably share the link.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But what I did is I like actually saved Android APKs over time, and then every release measured it. But we have some internal graphs and things, but I don't think we can share that. But I can share this repo.
Cool. And you have a big blog coming soon, right?
Yeah, so I think there were some other comments about performance. Like our focus was like startup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like traditionally, Xamarin Forms app on Android, like it could have taken like a second to launch, or and I think we're in a much better place in MAUI, and that's not just with like templates, but the .NET Podcast app. And I kind of put a long blog post together, everything we did that. Some of the things we did, if you're using Xamarin, you get like Xamarin Android, you get those because our code base supports both .NET 6 and Xamarin Android. So Yeah, it'll be interesting when that goes out.
Cool. Gotta love perf. We are getting a ton of questions about App Center support, which I love to talk about. We don't own App Center. The App Center team owns App Center, believe it or not. We don't own everything. However, we have been talking to them about making sure it gets updated for MAUI. They did send out a survey today on the Visual Studio App Center Twitter that Gerald mentioned in this comment. Definitely go answer that, because a lot of times I'm like, Xamarin developers, MAUI developers love and need App Center. And the App Center team's like, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm sure. So definitely go give them your feedback. I think I retweeted it earlier this morning, but my Twitter is always a disaster. So just go straight to their Twitter is probably easier. Let's see what else. Would someone like to talk about developing for iOS from Windows? A lot of questions surrounding that. What do I do if I want to build an iOS app, but I have a Windows device that I like to what's the word? Develop on.
I mean, there are two ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
You got, if you're developing a MAUI app, you have hot restart, correct? So if you install iTunes and you have an iOS device, iPad, iPhone, whatever, you can set up hot restart and then run it that way. So then you don't need to have a Mac by your side. You can just use it directly off the device. If you have a Mac, then the preferred way would be to use the Mac and then use pair to Mac, which we should have documentation for that already in the docs for how to set up the pairing process to make sure that you can then connect your Mac to Visual Studio on Windows.
Yes. I'm sending all the links. Sweet. So there's lots of options. You don't need a Mac. You do need a Mac to get to the App Store. That's just how it works. But yeah, cool.
So can I ask a follow-up question?
Please do.
A prompt. So when using this fancy no Mac hot restart solution, how is it possible that my code runs when it hasn't been compiled?
I can describe it.
Oh,
Please.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I think this would be interesting to our viewers.
yeah. So what happens is, and Peppers, if you can help me on this if I'm wrong, because you might know too. So what happens is there is a precompiled application that is shipped alongside Visual Studio that is already built, right? That contains the Xamarin Forms or MAUI, because there's two versions now, applications that are already built, right? And then we have code inside of Visual Studio that does some fancy stuff that then takes that application bundle, ships it with your compiled MAUI stuff inside of that application bundle, ships it alongside, and then starts the app. That's also why you can only do MAUI or Xamarin Forms, not a straight iOS app. You need to have the because that stuff you cannot actually run that way, right? So yeah, we already have an existing application. We just stuff our stuff inside of it, and then we ship it along with it.
So it is compiled, but it's only compiling the cross-platform or the net standard assemblies, right?
Right. Yeah. So then that's also why there's, limitations of, like, let's say you want to have a linked iOS library inside of it. Well, no, yeah, you're going to need a Mac for that. So if you need to compile anything specific for iOS that isn't already there, then yeah, you're going to need a Mac. But for most people who just want to get started, that's fine, right? Like, that's probably a good starting point for most people. So
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Sweet. All right. The Linux question has come up. What's going on with Linux? I guess Dave, you're the one who usually answers this, so I don't know if you want to answer it again or if we want to throw someone else.
Well, I'll start, and then we can ask Javier to chime in with what he knows.
Yeah.
So I answered this last hour or whenever it was this morning when we first woke up and started doing these live streams today. That we do not currently support Linux on .NET 6 for building UIs. Of course, .NET itself has other Linux support, but the question here being specifically MAUI. We are certainly hearing the feedback and through all the channels, whether they're live streams like this or blog post comments or surveys. what we need to know so that we can build a case, because like I just already mentioned, we don't have the unlimited resources that have been ascribed to us. But in order to prioritize it and state the case for it, we really need a better understanding of what that request entails. Are you looking to develop from a Linux environment, but you're actually distributing Windows and or Android applications? Are you building and distributing Linux applications? And if so, which distributions and yada, yada. I mean, it's like that leads to a billion other questions. So we really need that feedback from you. Please email me. I complained earlier, and I'll say it again, that probably 1 in 100 people that comment on this stuff. Oh, here comes glitter.
Party time. Someone said it was too boring, so I'm making it more fun.
Only very few people actually reach out to me and give me any information that I can add to our backlog of evidence. So please let me know what it is when you say I want Linux. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Help me help you.
What do you want to build? Do you just want to do it for development? Help us help you.
Help us.
Yeah,
but in the meantime,
for example,
Blazor would be a great option. In the meantime, Javier, what actually works on Linux these days and or could work on Linux these days in the open source world in which you run the show?
We created a backend giving support to Linux on Xamarin Forms using GTK. In that time, we used the version 2 mostly because it's the version that was also used by Visual Studio for Mac in that time. Now, as many of you probably know, they moved to native with Cocoa, but that was one of the main reasons. And today, one of the main questions is what is the expected approach? Because we can create and allow to use Blazor, with a web view and create Linux applications in that way. Or maybe the people is expecting to create native applications using GTK. We started a community project to get more feedback and to play with different approach, with different ideas. It's a repository that is called MAUI Linux. It's using GTK 3. There is some playing and experiments with GTK 4 too. But the summary is that we need more feedback to know if we need to go in that direction. We need to go using the web view. We also did some experiments using the graphics controls, using Skia Sharp to render controls also on Linux. So there are some different, experiments and projects where people can share their feedback. We are open to receive any kind of feedback, any collaboration. So please give us more feedback.
Love it. I'm starting to have fun now with these animations, which is just going to be distracting. So whatever. One thing that I think Tim or Dave, one of you mentioned at the beginning of answering that question, is Blazor and MAUI. What on earth are you talking about? What is the web story? How do you develop for it? Why are we talking about it? What's going on?
So Blazor and MAUI. We added the Blazor web view to MAUI. And what's really exciting about this is that Blazor is not just a web application in a hosted browser context, but it's actually a .NET application. So what this means is that we can give you a hybrid scenario for building applications that your UI is rendered using HTML, CSS, but all that .NET code has the same access to all of the MAUI.NET code, which means that you have no real browser barrier that you have to interop through or bridge, I guess is usually the word that's used. So it's really cool. And you don't need to modify your Blazor code really to make this work. So any Blazor app or individual Blazor component could be used both in your website, server or WASM, or whatever the different modes are these days, it doesn't matter, and it'll host and run inside of a MAUI app on mobile and desktop. And it's all running in that app. It's a compiled app, so it's not calling out to a server, and there's no local server that's being spun up inside of MAUI. It's all .NET code that gets compiled and runs in the .NET space. So it's super cool. Lots of flexibility. We've seen a lot of feedback that people are really happy with the results. So they're able to very quickly spin up their applications because they're using skills and tools that they know, and not having to learn a whole new UI toolkit, such as, the MAUI controls. But you can blend and use either or, and you can use as much Blazor as you want, as much of the MAUI controls as you want, for whatever the scenario is. It's not an either or situation. It's a both and. So.
Yep. Do it.
And
Go ahead,
also,
Tim. Go ahead.
Sorry, just quickly on that point too, is that's also why bringing up the point about Linux support, because people are definitely talking about it, is that when it comes to deciding how to draw or what to do about Linux, for controls and stuff, it's a web view is relatively straightforward. And so therefore it's if Blazor makes sense for that scenario for a web view there, so then you can have an application that runs there. It's if that's the sort of stuff you're interested in, it's that's the stuff you might want to start feedbacking on and start talking about more, because that's something that's probably more doable than the other stuff that people want. So just as a heads up, that might be something worth upvoting, as it were.
Yeah, love it. On a totally unrelated note, lots of questions about, is MAUI the right thing to use for an enterprise app? Right? Because we use WinUI 3 as our backend, and a lot of people here are talking about WPF. Should you use MAUI for a line of business app or for an enterprise app? This person, Shiny Borel, a while ago, why is there no grid view? I mean, we have a grid. Is that not what we're asking about?
Yeah,
so
probably not asking about the grid itself. They're asking about a data grid type control, I would imagine.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about MAUI for enterprise? For instead of writing a WPF app or instead of writing a native Windows app, why would you want to use MAUI? And is it supported in all those different places that, in ways and reasons that line of business apps are built?
Well, if you look at the customers that have been using Xamarin, and they are the same customers that will be and are starting to already use .NET MAUI, it's tons of line of business applications. It's tons of enterprises. And, really, I guess because it was primarily mobile in the Xamarin days, but now we're going to the desktop, our existing customer base, developers that are using the technology, are really across a lot of different market sectors. So absolutely, you should be able to build anything with it. Does that mean that we have absolutely every control that you have today in WPF? No. The data grid is a notable one. But thankfully, component vendors are supplying data grids that are desktop capable and up to that level of quality. In particular, I know that Progress Telerik has one. And so, at this point in time, we're going to be certainly pointing people in that direction. TreeView is another good example of something that's not in .NET MAUI today, but component vendors, almost all of them have a TreeView. So we feel like as a starting point, that's where you can fill those gaps. And the priority, the theme for us as we approach .NET 7 and really this whole next, several months, is about completing the desktop story for the controls and or at least the underlying features that we need: hover states, some Visual State Manager support, some gestures, some mouse cursor stuff, keyboard support, things like that. So the recommendation is definitely, hey, WPF is supported. And if you're only targeting Windows and you never, ever, 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 you can guarantee we'll go cross-platform, then yeah, sure, feel confident doing that. You're supported by Microsoft. Where we want to be is to make it super easy to say, no matter what you're building, if it's UI and it's an app, you want to be using .NET MAUI. And even if you are targeting one platform and never think you'll go to multiple platforms, the reason being is because then we can optimize our controls. We can optimize our productivity in Visual Studio for one scenario as opposed to spreading out Tim's efforts and other teammates' efforts across supporting multiple things. But in order to do that, we need to know, what are you missing in our desktop story for .NET MAUI? Controls wise, the designer question, going back to that, is a designer the reason that folks keep going to WinForms, for example? And what would that look like? What would it need to look like in .NET MAUI for people to feel comfortable making that transition?
Cool.
I have
just to
jump off of that, because I think that's an excellent point, is also that like the other way to think about it too, when it comes to like specific controls or idioms and paradigms that are inside of desktop apps or specific platforms, is you could always use like a platform specific control within MAUI that is not written for the other platforms necessarily, right? And so like what you need to remember about MAUI is that it's built on top of the native platform stack, and you can always access that. And so either you can create the control yourself and make that cross-platform, or you can just call up the existing control and integrate that in directly, or you can make a platform-specific application for iOS, Android, whatever, and then call into MAUI through embedding and use it for specific controls. It's like there's a lot of flexibility and stuff in terms of if you have an idea, there's probably a way you can do it where it's like you don't necessarily need to have every single control mapped to a cross-platform implementation. You can always create it yourself or, call up specific things. It takes more effort. It's not, it's more of a power user thing, but there's a lot more options, out there because of the way MAUI is built on top of the platform that you can always just call the native platform stack.
Cool. Rui, I have a question for you, my friend. What does the Azure DevOps pipeline support look like for MAUI?
Well, it's not that hard now that the workloads are a little more stable. So we just have a couple of steps to install the workload using a file that specifies everything that we want, the iOS workload, the Android workload, and the .NET SDK and other things. And it actually was John that wrote a special CS project that just installs the workloads and then builds a product. It's not that complicated. Also, just a heads up, we have like a public Azure instance DevOps that you can check everything there, and you can see the steps that we are using, and if you need anything, you can ask, and we can share more information about it.
Sweet, easy.
That MAUI profiling repo I have has an example of it. If you wanted to check it out, there's a YAML file in there that installs .NET, installs workloads, and builds apps.
YAML.
Probably be a good place to check out.
Yeah, check out the .NET podcasts and the Weather 21 repos too. Squeaky set up YAML and build pipelines.
Yeah, Squeaky's the best. We have a ton of questions about advanced stuff, and the ones that have been coming up a lot are in-app purchases and payments. How would I do something like that in my MAUI app? Can I do something like that in my MAUI app?
Nobody knows. I feel like it's a trivia question for the team.
I mean, I have an answer, but I don't know if it's the right answer.
The quiz is, did you read my blog post? That's the quiz, because the answer's in the blog.
Well then,
go ahead.
Because I was going to say that, you can always call into the native platform in order to do it. And if it can do it, then you can do it. So yeah, it's already there. And then I would say, read his post, which I didn't know existed.
James Montemagno has a NuGet package that does in-app purchases and payments, and you can actually do like recurring billing as well. So it's called plugin.inapp billing.
Wow.
Just on that point too, though, it's like even if that didn't exist, though, which is I'm glad James made it. Then is that you can always call into the platform to do it. If the platform can do it, you can do it. It's there. So you can look into it on a platform level and also be able to call into it. Like that's the other benefit again of what we have is if you have an idea. I mean, again, it takes more work because now you have to look into how to do it on each platform. But if nobody has already done it, you can do it. It is there.
Yeah, there should be no dead ends. I mean, you should really be able to do anything. Is it going to be a little bit more effort to do it like you were describing? Yeah, but my opinion has always been that this is what we get paid to do. We're software developers.
Yeah, I like that. Wait, they pay you? No, I'm just kidding.
Rachel, you
My
keep
boss about that.
disappearing.
I know Rachel keeps fading into the background. We have had a couple questions come in, like what can we do for accessibility in Maui? I know that's Rachel's area of expertise, so I'll just pop that up so we can see her face for a second.
Yeah, so we've made a lot of improvements in accessibility from Xamarin Forms to .NET MAUI. And I'd say the main thing is semantic properties. So we have new APIs called semantic properties. You can still use the automation properties if that's something you're familiar with from Xamarin Forms. But semantic properties is the new and better way of doing things and making sure that your screen readers will read out all of your controls and be able to announce them accessibly. So I'd say that's the biggest change.
Sweet.
We also have an intern right now on our team who's working on accessibility stuff right now. So I think you're working with her, right, Rachel, on that? Like they're trying to add like the Windows accessibility toolkit stuff into Visual Studio and then calling it out to then do reports for applications and things. Like that is a project that we're currently speccing out. So
yeah, I chatted with her as well. I'm really excited to see what she'll work on and creating some sort of accessibility checker. And that'll also help make developing apps accessibly a lot easier for all of y'all.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, something's falling. Is that you, Rachel? What are you knocking over? No, I'm kidding. Sweet. All right. Oh my goodness. I look away from the chat to try and find the link for 1 second, and I come back, and it's insane. Oh my goodness. What do I have in here? Oh, hi, Squeaky. Squeaky's in the chat. Hi, Squeaky.
Why isn't Squeaky on the screen? Come on,
I know,
Squeaky.
Squeaky. I'll send you this link if you're around and you want to join in for the last few minutes. You totally can. Who wants to talk about Comet, MVU, what C# for markup, all those things? Does anyone want to talk about what's going on with that?
Oh, we need to get Clancy here for that, right? He's not here.
So I do know that we just had a long debrief yesterday on all things Comet. So yeah, it's continuing to be updated with each release of .NET MAUI, and he has certainly things in his backlog that he would like to see added to it. But where we are with it right now is Comet is out there as an experiment. And we need people to be using it, filing issues, and telling us what you think. It should have enough of the bare bones pieces there for you to be able to build a full app. That doesn't mean it's going to have absolutely everything. But to Tim's point from previous questions, you can still get to the native platform to do whatever you want and whatever you need to with a bit more effort. But he's building apps with it. Others are poking at it. I look forward to getting back to it myself, but similar to the Linux thing, need to know what you think. Help me build a case for it. But regardless, it's open source software, and totally recommend you use it. And the more people that use it and tell us about it, the more justification we have. So I really love it. I think it's super useful and cool. But we need to really kind of test the limits of it, see where it falls apart. If it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's perfect as it is, and we'll never need to fix anything.
Yeah.
The key is just the maintenance cost of having another framework on top of everything else is, as you've said earlier, it's like you have to have people to maintain it and work on it. If we don't have that.
Well, experiments serve another function too. It's not just about it becoming a product. The other function of it is, are we learning things from it that can benefit the products that are out there? So the handler mapper stuff that's in MAUI, we learned that from Comet. Like Clancy prototyped it there, told us about it. We thought it was a great way to solve some issues, and we adopted it, and we built MAUI around that. Similarly, utilizing the interfaces and source generators, the majority of Comet code is generated. So there's not as much of a support burden. And so we're learning a lot of things through that as well. What could we do to bring that back into MAUI and be generating perhaps the controls themselves as opposed to maintaining the controls by hand and re-implementing things. Yeah. So
all right,
they serve that function too.
It looks like some other party might have just got out because we have even more celebs joining us here.
Look at that.
I can't fit everybody. Welcome, John, Squeaky, and Brett.
Howdy, y'all.
Introduce yourselves real quick. You've missed a lot of fun. You've missed the Linux questions. You just came in on Comet questions. Squeaky, we talked a little bit about Upgrade Assistant, which Squeaky's been doing all the work on. And someone asked about CI/CD. But introduce yourselves.
I was summoned. Oh my God. You say my name 3 times, I appear. That's how it works.
That is how it works. It is. So yeah, introduce yourselves, what you work on, where you are, if you want to share. And then we'll go back to the questions while I sort through the chat, which is out of control. John?
Cool. Yeah, I'm here. I just got out of bed, as you can tell. Yeah. Busy doing the other things that have to be done during the day, but I finally made it. I am the engineering lead on the .NET MAUI project, so happy to see everybody here, all my teammates' faces, making cool things and celebrating them being released.
Cool. Hold on. Wait.
Gerald gets in and kicks Maddy out. How'd that happen?
There's a 10-person limit. Wait, Dave, I'm removing you for a sec so Gerald can say hi. Hi, Gerald. Look at him in his .NET Run shirt in the car. You better not be driving. All right.
For safety reasons.
We'll talk to you in a minute. I'm bringing Dave back. Squeaky, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Squeaky. Super excited to be here. I work on the client customer advisory team. But as Maddy said, I've been working on Upgrade Assistant. Super excited to see you guys use it. Also was doing, literally yesterday, I was just adding some CI/CD pipelines to Weather 21. I should be getting that merged in soon, so that'll be pretty awesome. So yeah.
Cool. John, nice comment for you. Resize John's baby from years ago is baked into MAUI now. Very cool.
I'm touched that we somehow didn't rename everything to get rid of that terrible name, but it's kind of a fun Easter egg.
It is. All right, Brett.
Hey everyone, I'm Brett Johnson. Work on several things on the UI designer team. Officially, been working on a bunch of VS Mac stuff and getting the MAUI experience in VS Mac all shaped up more recently. And on the designer side, you might say, well, MAUI doesn't have a designer. Well, we were just discussing more today what customers might like to see there. So if you have any thoughts to share in that regard, feel free to pass those along. But yeah, it's glad to be a part of shipping this thing, getting it out there.
As soon as you said you're on the UI designer team, I'm sure half the audience just jumped in their seats. So we have other designers.
Yeah.
They're not MAUI that he works on.
That is correct. Yes.
Oh, yes. What was the thing I was just going to say? Oh, Brett, do you want to mention quickly? We had a bunch of questions come in about like VS Mac support. What's going on there?
Well, so internally we're just trying to wrap up our Preview 2 release, and it's getting better, more stable. It's MAUI support is improving. I don't know, added single project settings UI. It's still there's still work to do there, but there's an experience that should work for most of the scenarios for MAUI today. So yeah, it's coming along well. Happy to kind of see it go out. The new UI seems nice. Lots of people like that it's faster.
Awesome. All right, hold on. Gerald is back and apparently not driving. I'm removing Dave for a second. Gerald, this is going to work now. You're muted. Oh, hey.
Woohoo! Am I here?
You're here.
Yay!
Hey!
I'm underway, but I'm here. I didn't want to disrupt the stream too much, so I just wanted to say hi in a few last minutes. For the people who don't know me, I'm a software engineer on the .NET MAUI team. I've been trying to answer questions in the chat, so that's where I am, and I'm going to return to driving and go home.
Have fun. Bye.
Yay! Congratulations all. Talk to you soon.
See ya. Cool. And Dave back. Hi, Dave. Oh my goodness. Gerald makes a bunch of YouTube videos. So does Javier. So do a bunch of people. But Gerald's are also really cool. Yes, a cool YouTuber. 138Z says. Ton of questions coming in about like when Microsoft is going to start building things using MAUI. Good question. Dave, you're muted, but I don't know if you want to answer that or John or whoever. One of the Johns. I don't know.
It's hard to predict, and we can't force anybody to do anything. But the good news is we know that we have a lot of interest from different teams. And what we really need to focus on doing is making sure that we make MAUI as useful as possible for our customers. And as that becomes more and more true, we have all confidence that more teams will adopt MAUI for their needs. We've always had internal teams using Xamarin, and some of them are looking to upgrade to .NET 6 and MAUI. Some of them just aren't things that you hear often about. Like some of our customers, like you'll never see their stuff in the App Store, but they run their business on 15 plus Xamarin apps that, line of business and whatever else that really kind of powers their whole industry. So that's the case. Would love to have some of those public flagship applications out there to be able to talk about, but where we are in the product cycle right now is we just GA'd.
I think we're building the field of dreams, David.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes, build it and they will come.
Unfortunately, you can't just tell Office to rebuild all of Word because you ship something. Right. But if they would do that for us, that'd be great, Office people. You want to.
Well, they already have like a dozen technologies that make up every single Office product. So,
oh yeah.
What's one more?
What's one more? Javier, we had a question about the good-looking UI repo that you maintain for Xamarin. So Javier has a repo. I'll try and dig up the link while he is talking about it, called Xamarin Good-Looking UI. And there are a bunch of other resources to find just good-looking Xamarin Forms applications and the source code behind them. Are you going to keep that up for MAUI? Are you going to...
Yeah, in fact, it's already created. So I have two new repos. One of them is housed on .NET MAUI, where I'm just creating a list with the different, plugins, extensions, samples, etc. that already exists in open source world. And the other one is mostly the same. It's an awesome, good-looking Xamarin .NET MAUI samples created by the community. So far, there are a few ones because we already released GA, but there are some really good samples there, and we'll continue growing up. So, yeah, that is it.
Sweet. I think I just posted both of the links. So hopefully that works. Yes, Rui, your dog is a celebrity in the chat right now. Your dog is very, very cute. Hi, puppy. It's my dog's birthday, but I sent him to daycare today because he likes to be chaotic during live streams. So they made him a cake. It was very cute. A cake at daycare for my dog. So, yep. All right. We're at 2. So... any parting thoughts from anyone? I guess to wrap it up on a positive note, quickly, what's everyone's favorite thing about MAUI? Not the Hawaiian area, but the product we just released. Tim, you first.
Oh, thank you. I would say everything to do with hot reload is pretty good. And the people who work on it, thumbs up. They should get a raise, promotions, etc. Everything to do with that. No, but seriously, though, I think it's that, honestly, not... the best part about working on this whole experience is just how much we've all come together to try to get everything to work. And we have a long way to go, but there is just a ton of like the teamwork involved in just shipping all of this to get all of the parts from the platform side to runtime to the UI tooling to MAUI itself and getting everything together. That, there's been a lot of rough stuff, but I would say that's probably my favorite part, though, is just the teamwork and camaraderie that we've done together to get everything to work. So that's what I would say. hopefully you're okay with the conceptual answer.
Love it. Love it. Peppers?
Yeah, I'm a MS Build guy, I guess. So I like that .NET 6 has short project files, and I also like the single project setup. You know, just having a folder called Platforms, Android, etc. It's great.
What? Javier?
Ooh, it's complex. There are so many different parts, but I have been seeing the approach that third-party vendors and some community guys have been taking with new handlers architecture and using, for example, the new mapper, and how that almost reduces when someone requires to use something like an effect. And I'm really excited to see how some libraries are ported from Xamarin Forms to .NET MAUI using it. And also I'm particularly waiting to see new benchmarks and performance gains with the new architecture. So I will say that.
Sweet. Love it. Squeaky?
I'm going to steal what someone mentioned in the comments. I love Resizetizer living in MAUI now. Don't have to spend hours. Don't have to learn Photoshop. I don't have to figure out how to make icons all the right sizes. So yes, so
amazing.
Cool.
Amazing. John?
Well, and apart from just the icon stuff in Resizetizer, there's more that was added to MAUI, right? So like, you know, Matthew did a bunch of work on like all the font stuff and all of the app icon and splash screen stuff. So that's pretty cool too. But I think my favorite part is going to be the cheesy answer, which is like, you know, this is the start of MAUI, right? This is the first version. This is just like we talked about getting to the finish line, but it's really the starting line. We have a lot of opportunity to create great things for .NET developers and let them release their products and their ideas and their code on all the different platforms. And I think just that's the best part, is the opportunity that we have going forward to like impact that space and bring something out to that community is huge. And we have a lot of different ideas of where we want to bring it, where we want to take it, and what we want to do with it. So like, it's just the start. It's like a blank slate going forward.
Yeah. Awesome. Rui and your pup?
So I think the best thing is like working with all the teams. Like now on .NET, we work with the SDKs teams, with the tools, with people from localization and everything, and that brings the experience of one Microsoft way better. And that improves to the product, it helps us, and especially it's better for the customers. And I think that's the big difference and what I love now on MAUI.
Love it. Love it. Rachel?
I tried to think hard about this, but it always comes back to accessibility for me. I mean, I mentioned before, we have new APIs like the semantic properties that help you to make apps as accessible as they can be. But literally, it has never been easier to make your apps accessible on Windows, on iOS, on Android, on all of our platforms. And my teammate Shane and I have put a lot of work into making sure that .NET MAUI is accessible as it can be, just by default, without you having to even do anything. So that's something that I'm really proud of our team for accomplishing.
Cool. Love it. Brett.
Yes, me and my pup is back there, just resting on the chair. If you can kind of see that brown splotch up there. Yes. Hello, Rui's dog. So yeah. So there's several things about MAUI that I love and excited about. Certainly there's lots of kind of focus on it internally at Microsoft, which is great to see. But especially for me, kind of the higher level of focus on having a good desktop story and desktop support I found particularly interesting and exciting. I mean, Forms had UWP is there, but there's a lot more focus with MAUI and WinUI and on the Mac with Catalyst on having a nicer desktop experience and continuing to kind of expand on that and fill in some of the gaps. And we have good collaboration with the Windows team and looking to continue on that team too. So yes, desktop.
Sweet. All right. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Ortinau.
Can I give you like my top 5?
No. We're already 5 minutes over, Dave.
I know. Here's what I think is really, really amazing about what we've done with MAUI is making the transition from framework and the Frankenstein project system and the renderers and all the things that we have upgraded, in many cases based on experiments from other things. We've brought all those cool concepts and all the new .NET 6 and before that .NET 5 things in without completely upending the cart. You don't have to rewrite your app.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time that a new UI offering was shipped with such massive compatibility for the code that you already have? I struggle to think what that would be. And so I'm super proud that we've been able to do as much as we have, and get everybody, all of our customers at the same line, at the same level, at the same, we're first class in .NET now. And so every new C# that goes out, you get it. Every new performance improvement in .NET itself, you get it. ARM support, you get it. Like, that's, not free, but this is where we are now. And I think if you can appreciate the scope of what just happened, it's incredibly exciting. And I'm super proud of the massive number of people from across all, the Windows team, the .NET team, Runtime, SDK, Mono, Xamarin, Android, and iOS, tooling teams. It's pretty awesome. And the client team, Squeaky. And that guy, Alex.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
That deserved a confetti.
Oh my God, you're right. I forgot we had confetti.
I know. Thank you. There we go.
Hey, we shipped it, everybody. We'll be back in a month to do the usual community stand-up. But in the meantime, everyone's Twitters are on here for the most part, so feel free to reach out. You know where to find us. Let me just hold on real quick. Got a slime. John got slimed. Sorry, John. Some stars. Oh, I like that one. Yeah, thanks for joining. You know where to find us. Keep your feedback coming on all the things. It's been a pleasure working with and hearing all of the feedback from our community over the past couple of years while we've worked on this. So it's relieving to get it out, but we know we have a lot of a way to go. So I'm excited. And we'll see you all in a month. Bye.
Cool. Hi. See you.